Hello, and thank you for joining us here at our little itty-bitty corner of the internet that we like to call What's Your Favorite Movie? On today's show, we're presenting my annual list, I know you're excited, of my favorite movies that I saw in 2018. We will get to that in just a few moments, but hey, thanks for joining us here on the program. Last time we were here, I didn't even mention, I'm really big on not announcing episode numbers. I feel there's too many podcasts that spend way too much time dealing with what episode number they are. This is episode 51, which means last time was episode 50. That's kind of an important milestone in podcasting history for a little show like ours. Episode 50, and now we are at 51. I forgot to mention that last time, and I thought it was worth bringing up. If you've joined us for all 50, or even just one, from the bottom of my movie-loving heart, I say thank you. Well, as you notice, we took a little break, and in the podcasting world, I think unless you're at the tippy top of podcasting excellence, you take a break unintentionally. Your breaks just kind of pop up, and all of a sudden you realize you haven't done a show in a couple of weeks or months or whatever the case is. Came out of episode 50, had a hard time lining up somebody for 51. Then I said, you know what? I'm going to take a break through the holiday. We'll be back in 2019. And here we are, our fourth year of podcasting. Can you believe that? The show debuted in March 2016, and here we still are, chugging along. So moving forward, I think, I'm having a lot of trouble lining people up for the show, finding guests, finding new people. So what I decided to do is from here till mid-May, I'm going to do a show every other week. That's going to be 10 shows through mid-May. And if I don't find anybody, I will figure out something to do by myself. But by golly, every other Wednesday for the next 20 weeks, your movie buddy Ed South will be right here yapping about movies. Hopefully we'll have some guests. We'll definitely have a lot of fun. Again, I know I say it too much, but thank you for joining us, and please continue to join us into the future. So here we go with my annual list of favorite movies I've seen in 2018. Actually, this is the first time I'm doing this list, but it's the annual list. You get the idea. Here's the concept. Here's the rules. I'm not claiming this is a best of 2018 because I certainly haven't seen a fraction of the movies that came out in 2018. And we all know I didn't see too many of the good ones. So this is a list of movies that I saw for the first time in 2018. New to me! And as always, the list is half new films from 2018 and classics that you may not have heard of. So are you ready to jump into this list, this fantastic list of motion pictures? And I put this list in alphabetical order. It's not in a, greatest first. It's just alphabetical order for easy sorting. Grab a pencil, write down these movie titles. And we are going to start off at movie number 1 with a classic. It's on every list of all-time greats. It's number 108 on the IMDb all-time list, and it's number 20 on the American Film Institute's list of great comedies called 100 Years, 100 Laughs. I've seen this movie pop up in so many lists, and I've never seen it, and I doubted it was that funny. It is called The Apartment. It is from 1960. It is the Oscar winner for Best Picture of 1960. And it is an absolutely delightfully charming and hilarious film. Again, it's from 1960. It's in black and white. This stars Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray. And Jack Lemmon works at a big company, and he's trying to work his way up the ladder. And he's doing favors for people, trying to make a good impression on everybody. And the one favor that he's able to provide for everyone is the keys to his bachelor pad. So the various men on the floor can take their girlfriends to his apartment for whatever it is that happens. It's a 1960 film, so even though it's a little, I wouldn't say vulgar, it's definitely adult, it's mature, but it's 1960 before the rating system, so it's very, very clean, it's actually wholesome, even though it's about adultery, but it's just and that I think helps make it charming and funny. It's just very cute, very sweet. and he is doing these favors for everybody, letting them use his apartment. It starts to get frustrating. He finally thinks he makes his big break, and he meets the boss of the whole company, and it turns out the boss just wants the apartment as well. Jack Lemmon falls in love with the elevator operator, played by Shirley MacLaine. Turns out the boss is also in love with Shirley MacLaine and taking her to the apartment. So you can see the triangle of affairs that sets itself up. It's just a great, great movie. I really, really, really enjoyed it. First of all, you have Shirley MacLaine and Fred MacMurray in it. So you get two Macs in one movie. How can you go wrong? Also in this film is the ever delightful Ray Walston, who you may remember as Mr. Hand in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And who can forget him as Popeye's dad in the 1980 classic Popeye. So first on my list is The Apartment, 1960. Definitely worth checking out. It is pops up on Turner Classic Movies often, and right now it is free on Amazon Prime. So check out The Apartment. Number 2 on my list, one that you probably have all seen, and it was just a great film. That's why it's on my list. Avengers: Infinity War from 2018. I was never a superhero person really until these movies came out, this recent string of Marvel movies, and I got caught up in them. I love them. Avengers: Infinity War, of course, is the third Avengers film, although the sequels don't matter because this also pulls from all the other films. And as we rolled towards Infinity War, they kept saying, hey, this character's going to be in it, this character's going to be in it, kind of like they did with the first Avengers. And it's like, there's no way this is going to be good. There's way too many characters in this movie. It's going to be a mess. But as always, Marvel pulled it off. All these characters in here, the Avengers, there's Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they all seem to weave them into the story perfectly. None of them are extemporaneous. May I use that word? It just works really, really well. I felt like in Civil War, what was that, Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man was kind of shoehorned in there, but in Infinity War, it all works. Everything, it was just great. And it was funny. It was action-packed. It moved the storylines of several of the different franchises forward. And it was just, a great movie. And that's why it made, actually, do I have how much it made? It made $2.5 billion. So that's how great it was. $2.5 billion. Everybody loved it. And it had a cliffhanger ending that I don't think a lot of people realized. Originally, it was called, I think, Infinity War Part 1, and they dropped the Part 1, and I don't think a lot of people knew that it was going to be such a cliffhanger, but apparently $2.5 billion didn't hurt it to be a cliffhanger. So the second part of this story, Avengers Endgame, comes out April 26th of 2019, and before that we get Captain Marvel March 7th, which is somehow going to shoehorn itself in between Avengers Infinity War and Endgame is what I hear, but I'm super excited for Captain Marvel. I actually when I got into superheroes from these movies, I started reading some of the books. I picked up a handful of Captain Marvels and read her origin story and Avengers Tales with her in it, so I'm really looking forward to Captain Marvel starring Brie Larson. It's great to see her getting a big role in a big blockbuster finally. And if you follow at all the Marvel Universe, Agent Coulson's coming back for Captain Marvel. It takes place in the 90s before he died. No spoiler since he was dead in the 2010 movie. But he has a TV show. Go figure. If you don't follow the Marvel Universe, you're out of it. It's like soap operas for men is what I always say. But so that's Avengers Infinity War from 2018, and that is currently on Netflix. You can watch it on your phone if you want. On Netflix. You know how Netflix works. I don't need to tell you. All right, let's move on to number 3. Number 3, another great movie. Is it inappropriate to say I like movies about young girls? I guess that is inappropriate. I shouldn't say that, right? I'm just kidding. I like movies about school, and I tend to enjoy films from a female perspective because boy movies are usually like very aggressive, like sports driven, which I couldn't care less about sports, or it's always about guys trying to get into girls' pants. So Eighth Grade from 2018 is a really refreshing take on the school movie because it's not about all that stuff. It is about this girl who is introverted and has a hard time working her way through, in this case, the last week of the 8th grade. And I'm way past the 8th grade, but I have to say I identified with this girl because she just had some insecurities with dealing with crowds, dealing with social situations. I got you 100% there. So it's weird that I would identify with a film called The 8th Grade, but I really did. And again, I love movies about school. I don't know why. I didn't like school. I didn't like school when I was there. I didn't like school movies when I was in school, but now almost any movie that comes out that's about high school or maybe even a little lower, I'm in for. I love all of them. Heck, I even watched like How to Eat Fried Worms, which is about like the 4th grade. I just like school movies. So 8th Grade stars Elsie Fisher. One of her first big performances. She had played Agnes in Despicable Me 1 and 2, and she was just nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress Comedy for this movie. Josh Hamilton plays her dad, and it just follows her through the last couple of days of the 8th grade. There are moments of this movie that are hard to watch just because Elsie Fisher is so good and so convincing in this movie as being just completely awkward, a fish out of water in her own school. And some of the things that happen to her, or just watching her wiggle and squirm her way through situations. And the movie puts her in some tough situations, but it is really, really, really an enjoyable film. A really small, quiet film. It was directed by Bo Burnham, if I'm saying that right, who apparently some internet star. I don't know. But again, just a great movie, and it's about her going through school, and then near the end it kind of brings the dad in for a little more dynamics. And I watched the movie with my 15-year-old son, who is same age as the actress, a little older than the character. But when we were watching the movie, I said afterwards, like, you know, I kind of saw some of the dad's perspective in the movie, which is not the point of the movie. The point is the 8th grade girl's perspective. But in one part, she goes to the mall to hang out with some older kids, and the dad kind of like spies on her a little bit and is like hanging out, you know, upstairs watching down. And I got it. I understood why he was doing that. Of course, she was mortified. The movie portrays it as a mortifying situation, but I understood. I think there's a movie there for a dad's perspective on the school experience. Hollywood, if you're listening, you're not, but hey, hit me up. I don't know what that even means. But 8th grade, fantastic movie. Definitely one of my tippy top favorites of 2018. You can find that. It didn't get a wide release. I was fortunate enough to see it in the theater. We went, drove a little bit out of the way to see it. Right now it's a 99-cent rental on Amazon. And it's also in the Redbox. So if you're looking for a good movie, that's 8th grade. It's rated R. It was borderline PG-13. There's a little material in there that you might be uncomfortable watching it with your kid. I know I was, but check it out. 8th grade, 2018. Let's move on to number 4 on my list. Here we go. Back to 1965 for this one. And I got on a little bit of a run earlier this year with Natalie Wood. I was watching finding Natalie Wood movies and watching her. A little fascinated with her murder, the way she died, the mysterious, which I believe it was earlier this year. It came up in the news again, her unsolved murder. So we had watched Rebel Without a Cause, which was really good, and I just got on a kick of Natalie Wood. She's great. And one of the films that I found with her in it is called The Great Race from 1965. This is directed by Blake Edwards, who is one of my favorite directors. He did all the Pink Panther films back in the 60s and 70s, early 80s. Also directed one of my very favorite movies called Blind Date with Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger. So when I'm writing my notes, I'm like, I don't need to write down who's in Blind Date. I know who it is. And then here I am recording the show and I can't remember who was in Blind Date. But anyway, I think I'm rambling. The Great Race, 1965. Natalie Wood's in it. That's what brought me to the table, but also Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and Peter Falk. And this movie, it was so much fun. It is a tribute kind of and a throwback to silent movie era films, even though it's not silent, it's not black and white, definitely in color, and I'm 100% sure there was sound in it. But this is a good old fashioned like good guy in white, bad guy in black, Snidely Whiplash kind of villain played by Jack Lemmon. And basically Tony Curtis proposes to this car company that they have a race from New York to Paris to promote the sale of their new car. And for no reason, Jack Lemmon's character is this evil villain. He's one of those villains that just likes to be evil. It's very, very cartoony. I believe there's even like cartoon bombs. He drops like cartoony bombs that look like they were bought from Acme. And Jack Lemmon and Peter Falk is his sidekick, which is really cool to see Peter Falk not in Columbo mode as we're so used to him. And they are chasing Tony Curtis all across the globe, and there's all kinds of wacky situations. And Natalie Wood plays a reporter, and she tags along with Tony Curtis. It's just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy that genre of film, the silent films, the old vaudeville kind of stuff. So even at a running time of 2 hours and 40 minutes, I really, really, really enjoyed this film. That's almost an entire movie longer than I like my movies. But it does have an intermission in the middle, so you can actually separate it into 2 nights if you want it to, which I think I did. And of course, the intermission's at a really nice, clean cut place. Another thing I loved about it was the opening of the movie was done in those old slides. If you ever seen like a vaudeville show or something like that with the hand painted slides, the credits were done like a slide with other credits filled in, like gentlemen, please remove your hats, and please note the nearest exit, and all that kind of fun stuff. So The Great Race from 1965, that is definitely, if you enjoy big lavish comedies and epic films of yore. There used to be a lot of close to 3-hour movies back in the 60s. The Great Race is a great title to track down. I think part of why I liked it so much is it reminded me a little bit in story of Cannonball Run, which oddly enough has no story, so I don't know how that goes. But The Great Race, and you can often find that on Turner Classic Movies. That will pop up on there every once in a while. I saw it, rented the disc from the Netflix DVD service. Yes, that still exists. I highly recommend it, and I used it. Let's go to number 5, and oh boy, this is a good one, and you probably had a feeling it might have been on this list. 2018's Mary Poppins Returns. If you recall back to episode 41 of this very podcast, and if you don't, you can go back and find it in our archives. Episode 41, I pretty much gushed about the teaser trailer for Mary Poppins Returns for 45 minutes. It lived up to its promises. It was delightful and whimsical and magical. It reminded me a lot of The Force Awakens, of Star Wars Force Awakens, as far as recycling and kind of making a sequel, but also paying tribute to the original movie. There were certain plot points that it had to hit along the way. It replaces certain elements, just like Force Awakens did. Like, instead of chimney sweepers, you got lamplighters. Instead of kites, kind of as a main element, there's balloons. There's a cartoon segment. The bank comes into play. All these things from the first film, from the 1964 Mary Poppins, come into play here. Emily Blunt plays Mary Poppins wonderfully. And then you have Emily Mortimer plays Jane, who is the daughter in the first movie. Not the same actress, but she's playing who the kid was in the first movie. You get me. And Michael's there. And then we have Lin-Manuel Miranda, a la Hamilton, is the Dick Van Dyke role, basically. He's the lamplighter, and there's a couple of great musical numbers with the lamplighters. Again, very similar to Chim Chim Cheree. You even got Meryl Streep in there, who's taking over the Ed Wynn role. I'll give you a minute to look that up if you would. Ed Wynn was the uncle that was laughing in the first movie, and he's up on the ceiling. The Meryl Streep segment plays very, very similar to that, although no one is floating up in the air. Then you also have Colin Firth in it as the mean manager of the bank. And Colin Firth was an absolute favorite of my mother's. So she would have been delighted to have seen a new Mary Poppins, and she would have been thrilled that her dreamboat Colin Firth was in there. So that was extra nice. Because, of course, I have memories watching the original Mary Poppins with my mother on several occasions. And then the only main actor to reappear, and I don't think either of these are spoilers. I think this is pretty much out there for everyone to know. Dick Van Dyke is in both the 64 Mary Poppins and in the new one. In the old movie, he also played, besides playing Bert, Chim Chim Cheree, he's also the banker near the end of the movie. He's under a lot of prosthetics. And there's a character in the movie that's supposed to be his son. Well, now he plays the son 20, 30 years later, whatever this is supposed to be. And it is a great setup cameo. And then, but his name's in the opening credits, I think, so it's not a surprise. And it was just magical. You have to see it. He's dancing. He's 92, 93, something like that. Light on his feet. It was so great. And then at the tail end of the movie, again, I don't think this is a spoiler. We all know she's in there somewhere. Angela Lansbury pops up, and the way they do it is so magical. They wanted to have Julie Andrews do this part at the end, and Julie Andrews turned it down. She didn't think it was right, and I have to agree with that 100%. First of all, you don't disagree with Julie Andrews under any circumstances, and second of all, if they had put Julie Andrews in the movie and then she was like old lady at the end, it would have kind of felt like, is Mary Poppins like Santa Claus, where maybe it's not one person, it's like anybody, like, you know, whoever is Mary Poppins actually changes people from time to time, and there's an old Mary Poppins. So you bring Angela Lansbury in, who is every bit as Disney magical as one could hope for. First of all, she's got credentials. She solved 3,000 murders as Jessica Fletcher. She's also in the Mary Poppins slight ripoff Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which is also fan-friggin-tastic. And of course, she's Mrs. Potts. This is the most anyone has ever dedicated on a podcast to speaking about Angela Lansbury, besides perhaps Murder She Podcasted, the Murder She Wrote podcast. I don't know. So this movie is great. Mary Poppins shows up. All kinds of great magical things happen. Every time I looked over at my daughter, who's 5, watching it, her eyes were the size of, what do we say, silver dollar pancakes, whatever. Her eyes were just wide-eyed, mouth open, agape at what she was seeing on the screen. Just loved every minute of it. She was so excited, which of course made it more delightful for me. Mary Poppins Returns is in theaters right now, so you should still be able to catch it. You should see it. There's like no reason why you wouldn't go see it. And I'm sure, since it's a Disney film, it'll be out on Blu-ray the minute it's done its theatrical debut. And I would predict that this will be one of the marquee initial offerings on the Disney Plus streaming service. If you didn't know, Disney is going to have their own streaming service, just like Netflix. It's called Disney Plus. It's coming later this year. And my guess is it will have Mary Poppins Returns. Maybe even Mary Poppins Originates, the first film from 1964. Hey, before we get to number 6 on my list, have you heard of this thing called social media? So what it is, you know, back in the old days, only people who were talented or who went to school got to have access to broadcasting their thoughts, feelings, and storytelling abilities to the world. Now anyone can do it. It's called social media. It's great. Anybody can put stuff out there for the rest of the world to see. What a fantastic idea, right? Anyway, it makes this podcast possible, so we thank social media. And as you know, we have a plethora of social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at WYF Movie Podcast. You can email us at favemoviepodcast@yahoo.com. I know email isn't really social media, but cut me a break, okay? You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us on one of those. At least you'll get I don't post too much. We don't go crazy with it. It's a good way to interact with us. We'll also let you know when new episodes are out or coming, so that's always good. And do us a favor and make sure that you're subscribed to the show wherever you listen to us, on iTunes or whatever app. But take a second, if this didn't pop up in your normal feed, to maybe reactivate your feed. I don't know how you do it, like drag down and make sure it rereads it, because I know like iTunes will stop updating after a month of inactivity. So we haven't been on since October, so your feed might have gone dry. I don't know the technological words for these things, but just double check that your feed is still active and still running, so that you can get more fantastic episodes of What's Your Favorite Movie delivered directly to your ears. And as always, tell a friend, share the show on your social media. Your friends will think more of you. And hop on there on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you want us, and let us know what some of your favorite movies were of 2018. What did you see, old or new, that you enjoyed? We're going to get right back to the list at number 6. This one's a classic, 1988. The night we watched this movie, I posted on Facebook that I was watching it, and people were aghast that I had never seen this movie. Never. From Japan. It's My Neighbor Totoro, a Miyazaki film, Hayao Miyazaki. I didn't take the time to really figure out how to pronounce that before I came here and recorded today, but I know it's Miyazaki or something like that. This is an anime film, and I have a real hang-up with anime in general. It goes back to my Saturday morning cartoon days when everything was Hanna-Barbera or Filmation, which looked a lot like Hanna-Barbera, and then all this animation from overseas started to pour into Saturday mornings, and it looked inferior to me. And I did not like it. I've had a stigma against anime for many years, and I would like to take this moment to apologize to the many fine men and women who work on anime and who have made several delightful animated pictures in the style of anime. I don't know. But my kids wanted to see this movie, My Neighbor Totoro. My daughter, again, 5, became intrigued with the character because she had seen some plush and some merchandise at like Hot Topic or something like that. So we decided to get it, to check it out. And it was, I think I've used this word too much, absolutely charming, totally sweet little quiet animated film. Perfectly captures on so many levels the carefree days of childhood and summer, where you're just free to explore and use your imagination. It's about these 2 little girls, and they move to the country, and their house is like out in the middle of nowhere, and they discover these forest spirits, and they just have all these kind of crazy adventures. And it's one of those things where it's like, is this really happening? Are they imagining it? Or it doesn't even matter how any of that goes. It's just an absolute delight, and we all loved it very, very much. My Neighbor Totoro, you've probably seen it. It is on Roger Ebert's list of the great movies of all time, and on the IMDb list of all-time great movies, currently, as of this recording, at number 134. It was originally recorded in Japanese, so I'm sure you can find a Japanese language version with subtitles. There's 2 dubbed versions, the original one from the 80s, and then there's a newer 2005 dub that Disney did with the Fanning sisters, Elle and Dakota? Am I right? And Tim Daly from Wings. Who would have ever thought I'd recommend a film with Tim Daly from Wings? But I saw the newer dub, and it was really, really nice. Very, very nice. You know, a lot of the older Japanese dubbed films where they dub it into English, they have to speak very fast to keep up, because I guess Japanese is a faster paced language than English. So that's why they all have that same cadence. So they took some liberties with slowing it down and changing the dialogue a little bit so that it comes out very natural. And I just thought it's really, really good. My Neighbor Totoro. It's animated. It's from 1988. You can easily find this on DVD and Blu-ray. It's everywhere. I think Disney just put out a new print of it, so you can find it at Walmart or Target without any trouble. Number 7 is another older movie. This is from 1971. They call this a coming-of-age story, where a young lad comes of age. It's called Summer of 42. And I don't know why I saw this. I don't remember I saw it on TV. I don't know how I came to record it and watch it, but it was really, really good. It's about a boy who's on summer vacation on Nantucket Island in 1942, of course, and he develops a crush on a woman who's on the island, and she's older, but I mean the kid's a kid, high school maybe, and then she's like probably in her early 20s. She's on the island and she's awaiting news of her husband's fate overseas in World War II. So then that's the central story, and then there's all kinds of these little slice of life adolescent little stories that are tucked in there, and it was really, really good, and I'd never heard of it before. It turns out it was a big hit. Back in 71, it spawned a book that was really successful, and even a sequel, Class of 44. But a really nice, charming movie. Kind of reminded, I've used charming way too much here. It kind of reminded me of Stand By Me a little bit in that respect, but it was a little more lighthearted than Stand By Me. Directed by a guy named Robert Mulligan, who directed the classic 1962 To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a fantastic movie, and we've talked about it on this show before. He also directed, and I think I mentioned this last time when we talked about To Kill a Mockingbird, he directed a 1991 movie called The Man in the Moon, one of Reese Witherspoon's first movies, and that is a great, great, charming little movie that I also adore. So these are 3 movies by this guy that I would say I love. Stars in this movie are Gary Grimes, who and Jennifer O'Neill, who never really went on to too much else. They have other credits, but nothing of note, except Gary Grimes was in one of my all-time favorite sports movies, Gus, about the field goal kicking mule. And also one of his friends in the movie is Jerry Hauser, who played Marsha Brady's husband in the Brady reunion movies of the 80s. So you can't go wrong with that, can you? Summer of 42, 1971. There's some debate online if it's rated PG or R. Apparently it came out as both. I definitely saw a PG cut. It would probably be like a PG-13 now, but do you care? I doubt it. I believe I saw that on Turner Classic Movies. So if you're somebody who looks at Turner Classic Movies schedule like I do, that's the place you might find it. Moving on to number 8. Here we go. I always throw something really ridiculous in, but I really, really liked this movie a lot. Teen Titans Go to the Movies from 2018. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the TV show. My kids watched it when they were little, and I had seen some of it, but I am a big fan of taking a TV show, especially when it's currently on, and blowing it up to movie size. If you're not familiar with the Teen Titans, that is a comic book line from the DC universe, and it's a real regular comic book series with multiple characters in it. Beast Boy, Cyborg, who's also in the Justice League now in the movies, Starfire, Raven, and then Robin, as in Batman and Robin. And Teen Titans Go is not the first animated incarnation of these guys, but this is strictly a comedy show. It is very, very irreverent, silly, funny, and I will say that this movie elevated it to hilarious. This was some really, really good comedy, some smart parody of our current superhero culture, as well, of course, as parodies of other movies and songs and musical numbers in it. And it was just like a blast of kinetic energy and hilarious. Even, and my kids are trained well. We are not fans of fart jokes. The fart joke in this movie is actually well done and actually funny. So we were surprised about that. So, I mean, if a movie can pull off a fart joke, you got to put it on its list, on your list of 8 best or 10 best movies of the year. In the movie, the Teen Titans are tired of being taken as a joke because they're so silly. So they decide to adopt a serious persona and try to get a movie made of them. So it's a lampoon of Hollywood. It's crazy. It's really, really good. Some really, really solid humor and some good musical numbers. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the whole DC universe pops up in it. And the celebrity voice cast includes Will Arnett and Kristen Bell. That is out on Blu-ray already, and it'll be on HBO soon since it's a Warner Brothers film. Teen Titans Go to the Movies 2018. If you've never seen the show, you will still get this movie 100%. If you've ever seen anything superhero related, you will get it. You will get it, and you will like it. So I had a hard time rounding out this list to just 10 movies. I really could not find that 10th movie to make it a round number 10. And then I thought to myself, does it really need to be 10 movies? No, it doesn't. So for number 9, I'm going to tell you my honorable mentions. These are movies that almost made the list, but did not make the list. And I will ramble through them real quick. And then even though I was told not to announce I'm taking a sip of water, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we'll get to the last film and wrap it up and let you all go on your way. So my honorable mentions of movies that I saw for the first time in 2018, starting off with Scrooge, which is a 1970 film where Albert Finney plays the titular Scrooge. It's a musical. It was fantastic. I also really loved The Cheyenne Social Club, another 1970 film. This is a Western where Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda inherit a brothel. Again, it sounds raunchy, but it was absolutely, completely G-rated, except for one really bizarre, gratuitous nude shot. A Futile and Stupid Gesture, that's a 2018 Netflix film where Will Forte plays Doug Kenny, creator of National Lampoon Magazine and Caddyshack. I mentioned Rebel Without a Cause. I really liked that. Another school movie. 2014's Paddington. How was that so amazingly good? That was really, really good, which you've probably heard at this point. Another good one almost made my list. The Florida Project from 2017. This is a really small little film about living kind of in the projects. It's not really the projects. It's just a rundown hotel. It's right down the street from Disney World in Orlando in Florida. The title has a dual meaning because the Florida Project was the name of the Disney World project before they announced it. And this is a hotel right down the street. So Disney World comes into play a few times. It's an extremely R-rated adult film about a young single mother trying to raise her child, and they don't have any money. But Disney is woven into the story quite a bit in a unique and interesting way. The hotel that they filmed the movie in, I actually stayed at years and years and years ago before it became as rundown as it is in the movie. And then we went and visited this summer and drove by it and saw where they filmed a whole bunch of it. My son was really excited and really cool. Florida Project 2017. Also, I got more. I'm going to keep going. Frenzy, a 1972 Hitchcock film about a serial murderer that strangles people with a necktie. That was fun. The Beatles' Yellow Submarine. I know I saw it when I was teeny tiny, but saw it again. My daughter and I loved it. 2 Netflix films. The Package. It's a comedy about a kid who accidentally cuts off a certain part of his body on a camping trip. And Reversing Roe, which was a really good documentary about Roe versus Wade, a history lesson, and really, really fascinating. And then, of course, 2 great animated films. Ralph Breaks the Internet was a fantastic sequel that they actually had the idea for a sequel and made the film and not just made it to sell toys and merchandise. And also, as you've heard, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse goes way above and beyond what you would imagine a cartoon superhero movie would be. So that's my very quick list of honorable mentions for 2018. And now the aforementioned sip of water. And we'll get to my last film on the list, which happens to be in alphabetical order, the last film. And also, this one was my absolute favorite of the year. Won't You Be My Neighbor? Morgan Neville's documentary showcasing the lifetimes and work of Mr. Fred Rogers, who we all know as Mr. Rogers from the PBS series, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I love this movie so much. We did almost a whole episode of it. If you go back to episode 47, we talked about this movie quite extensively. Just a great, great documentary. I always have trouble with documentaries as far as like, is this a good movie or am I just fascinated with the subject matter or vice versa? But this was both utterly fascinating because I love Mr. Rogers, and it was a great movie. It's not a linear bio. It's not like, doesn't start with him as a baby and goes all the way up. It's kind of like a magazine. It's got little articles, little chapters, little side stories, and it kind of has all these different themes that it goes through the movie, building one story altogether. But you'll see him testifying before Congress, or some of the racial barriers that he moved. One thing it does really cool is even addresses like some of the more modern stuff about him, even though he's been gone for a while. But like internet rumors about if he served in the military or he was secretly gay or some of that nonsense. And it talks about memes and everything. It was just really good filmmaking with an amazing archival footage. TV nerd sidekick, seeing the old PBS logo, the old station ID go across the big screen in the movie theater was pretty awesome. I know it's sad, but that's where I am in life. So yeah, again, episode 47 of our podcast, you can go back and find it. And I ramble on about it for a long time with our co-host Diana for that episode. She had seen it as well. Great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, you will have a chance, as it's going to be not only on HBO starting February 9th, but HBO is letting PBS run it one night for free. So February 9th, it should be on PBS or right around there. So check your local listings for showtimes or whatever they used to say. Won't You Be My Neighbor? Great movie. Can't wait to watch that again. So that is my list of favorite movies that I saw in 2018. Hey, I want to take a quick moment. Another thing I didn't mention in the last episode was to say goodbye to the aforementioned co-host of our show, Diana. She unfortunately moved away from this area. She's like a 10-hour drive from here now, so I don't think she'll be popping in the studio anytime soon. Yes, I know you can do a podcast from two locations. Neither Diana nor I are technologically advanced enough to even begin to make that happen, so that's where we are. So, but I want to thank Diana, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, for coming up here to the What's Your Favorite Movie Studios all the time, mostly on short notice, filling in, doing homework, making lists, giving me questions, all that good stuff. So, Diana, or Movie D as we called her on the show, we will miss you greatly, and hopefully you will be back here one day, sometime soon. You'll come visit, right? Of course. We're going to get the budget to fly you out. I think that's really where it's coming down to right now. Seriously, folks, let's use the social media. Let us know what your faves are, recent or older, in 2018. Let us know. We'd love to hear it. Maybe you'll turn me onto some new movies or some of the people out in the audience. So we'll pass it along. Let us know. Again, of course, it's Facebook, Twitter. You can use Fave Movie Podcast at yahoo.com to interact with us. And I'm going to try something different here, not to jinx the show and mess it up, but I'm going to timestamp it and say our next episode will be to you January 23rd, 2019. So mark your calendars, folks. Mark your calendars. Who cares? Hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have another episode. It should be January 23rd. That is the timeline I am looking at. As always, thank you so much for joining us. Let's hope we can have some more fun in 2019, talking about movies, talking about all kinds of fun stuff, and just hanging out. This is weird now, so I am going to let you go. And until next time, my friends, it's khaki wishes and cookie dreams. So long.